so what we know is we have people in our community, like Justice, like all of you, who come out despite it raining and probably thundering out, that want change. And want change bad enough to be able to stand out in the rain and call for change. And I appreciate everybody being here. And it's that, with that support, that we need out in the ballot. We need to be able to elect progressive officials that aren't afraid to stick their neck out, aren't afraid to get dirty looks, aren't afraid to be able to not gain political points by the establishment that has been killing us and participating in systemic oppression. One of those politicians that have stood up for us is David Morales, Representative David Morales. Everybody give it up for David Morales.
Thank you all again for taking the time to be here, because this has been, without a doubt, one of the most stressful weeks in terms of police violence happening in the backyards here in Providence, Rhode Island, because time and time again, Providence police are continuing to demonstrate and show us without shame that they do not care for our communities. They have no compassion for the people that live here, especially for those with black and brown skin. We have seen enough, and I'm tired of demanding accountability that unfortunately it's very hard to imagine will ever happen because of the broken systems that we have in place. Because of the systems that allow for racist police officers to roam the streets and attack our lives, attack our people, as if our lives are a game to play with. So let the record show that the Providence police called us animals. Let the record show that the Providence police sprayed our youth, then proceeded to beat and assault working people of color in their neighborhood. Let the record show that the Providence police officials held a press conference yesterday where they defended their use of pepper spray on youth and argued that they were in the right of the law and following policy when it came to the physical beatings that they had vulnerable people experience. So let the record show now that the Providence police are trying to hide behind their badge, behind the privileges of a broken system and laws that protect them, while still trying to criminalize the victims of police brutality. And let the record show that the Providence police do not care about our communities, as many of them are simply just conservative, middle-aged white men that do not live in our city. Instead, they choose to work here because Providence is known as the place where the quote-unquote action is. Providence is the place where law enforcement officials come to have fun at our expense because they know there is no accountability. And let the record show for the good cops that were watching the beatings taking place, the good cops that were just following orders are just as guilty as the ones committing. Just as guilty as the one committing these acts of violence. And we already knew all this. We already knew that they didn't care for us. But this last week just further demonstrated and helped us visualize the pleasure that our local law enforcement gets with playing our lives, like, again, as if it were a game. Because they know they won't be held accountable, nor do they fear that their department, that this beautiful complex, will ever lose an ounce of funding. Despite everything that happened last year, all the demonstrations, all the grassroots demonstrations led by young people of color, the Providence Police Department has seen an increase in their police funding. They have seen an increase in funding to recruit 50 new officers. A vast majority of which they're trying very hard to make sure are black and brown. Because they don't believe in actual systemic change. They just believe that if the faces that are beating us look like us, then the response won't be as harsh as it has been so far. Because we are here because we refuse to be intimidated. We are here 3 days out of over dozens of youth and people being pepper sprayed and beaten Because we're demanding change. We're demanding justice. And we're going to fight to keep our tax dollars away from them, to ensure that we don't continue to fund these places of brutality, these acts of violence. Because as justice, the speaker before me just said, no longer can we continue to play by their rules and these politics, these respectability politics where we're supposed to behave. Because that has proven that nothing will change. And with that, it is important we continue to show up. We continue to show that we will not be intimidated by the criminals behind those doors, those criminals with the badges. Because our communities deserve better than that, and we will show them that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Please give it up for Representative David Morales.